Namaste everyone, I am Gyan and you are watching the session 21 of Java and Web, Generics in Java. In this video, we will learn about the concepts of type eraser, bridge method and ambiguity error. Ambiguity error caused by the type eraser. So let's start. I think we already have learned about the concept of type eraser. We know that when we have a generic class, then the generic concept is only visible to the compiler. The type parameter of a class is not visible to the JVM. So at the bytecode level, the t will be converted into its upper bound. Since here we have not defined any upper bound for the type parameter t, therefore the t at the class level will be converted to the type java.lang.object. So after compilation, when we get the first dot class, or class first will look like this. The s will be a reference variable of type object. Now look at here in this case. We have a different upper bound for the type parameter t. The maximum upper bound for the type parameter t is number. Therefore, in the first dot class, the reference variable s will be of type number. Therefore, the process of erasing the type parameter and replacing it with the maximum upper bound in the bytecode of the class is called the process of type erasure. Now, there are various conflicts arises because of the type erasure. Now, let's see the concept of bridge method. Here we have two Java files, base.java and drive.java. In base.java, we have the class base with the type parameter t and we have a reference variable ob of type t. In the drive.java, we have the class drive which extends base. But the class drive itself is not a generic class. However, it extends the class base and ensuring that the type parameter t in the class base will be of type string. If you look at the constructor of the class derived, then the class derived is using string as its formal argument. And by using the reference variable o of type string, it is calling the base class constructor. So if you are creating an object of type derived, then you will be calling the base class constructor. But when you call the base class constructor by using the reference variable num of type derived, then in that case, the reference variable t of the class base will be of type string. So hopefully you're getting my points. We already have seen this concept in the previous videos of this session. Now the problem arises here with the method getOb. For the JVM, the getOb method in the class base returns java.lang.object. But the method getOb in the class derived returns string. So these two methods are returning different types. This is not an issue. The issue is that both have to return a reference variable of type ob. And since here in this case, the reference variable ob in the class derived was inherited from the class base, and the reference variable ob in the class base is of type java.lang.object. So the return type of the method getOb is string, and it is returning a reference of type java.lang.object, which is not allowed normally. And of course, this will not be allowed. Yes, the getOb method of the class base can easily return a reference variable of type ob because its type depends on the type of t. But here in this case, for the JVM, ob is of type java.lang.object, but the return type of getOb is of type string. Therefore, the JVM will not allow this. So, erasure of the overridden method getOb in the class derived is very different from the method getOb in the class base. Both are having different return types. But issue is that both are returning the same reference variable ob from the class base. Therefore, the return type of both should be same. Now, what compiler does to handle this issue is, to handle this situation, compiler generates a bridge method in the derived class. That means in the derived class, the compiler will create another method whose name is getOb and which will return object instead of a string. So now the class derived will have two getOb methods. First one is this, which was already present in the class derived, whose return type is java.lang.string, and second one is this, which was introduced in the bytecode of the class derived and which returns java.lang.object. The idea is that the method getOb, which returns java.lang.object in the class derived, will call the method getOb, which returns a string. So that will make the two methods getOb in the class base and the getOb with the return type object in the class derived compatible. And the getOb method in the class derived whose return type is object ultimately calls the getOb method in the class derived whose return type is string. But there is one more issue. You may say that you cannot have two methods with same name and different return types. This is a wrong way to implement method overloading. But you as a user is not doing it. This was introduced by the compiler, and the compiler is the boss. Compiler can do anything he wants. Of course, as a programmer, you cannot introduce these two methods as a source code, but the compiler can do anything. Since this was done by the compiler, so it's okay. The bridge method, that means the method getOb, which returns object reference in the class derived, calls the method getOb, which returns string. And both methods are present together in the class derived. So normally, presence of two methods with same signature and different return types is an error. But since you have not created it as a programmer, therefore the JVM will handle it correctly because it was created by the compiler. Now there is one more problem, ambiguity errors introduced by the concept of erasure. So here you have use.java. In use.java you have the class use which accepts two type parameters t and v. In the class use, we have reference variable ob1 of type t and we have reference variable ob2 of type b. Then we have two set methods. One accepts a reference of type t and other one accepts a reference of type o. Now tell me, what are the meanings of t and v in the bytecode of this class? Both are of type java.lang.object. That is an error for the compiler. Therefore, in this case, the compiler will not allow you to compile this code and will say that the set v and set t have same erasure. These two methods will have same erasure. Means in the bytecode, they will look same. That's why the compiler will not allow you to compile this code. Now, what will happen if we extend the type parameter v with number? Then at the JVM level, v will be converted to number and t will be converted to java.lang.object. In this case, the compiler will allow you to compile this code. But the problem arises again. The problem arises again when you have a method main in the class use and when you are creating a new object of type use with number and number as its type arguments. In this case, the t becomes number and v also becomes number. So when you have this statement in your method main, then the compiler again will not allow you to compile this code. And at this time it is saying that both methods set t in use and method set v in use match where t, v are type variables. Here in this case, the compiler detects that the bytecodes of these two methods are going to be seen in the .class file. That's why the compiler will not allow you to compile this code. So because of this statement, the ambiguity returns. So the suggestions are, do not overload a method having a generic type in its signature. If two methods are accepting generic types, any of two is accepting a generic type as its formal argument, then do not overload that method. That means this is a suggestion that do not overload a method on the basis of generic formal arguments. Instead of doing that, you can use two methods with different names. So I hope you got all my points. That's all for this video, guys. Don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe my channel on YouTube, like my page on Facebook, and leave your valuable comments in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.